years, as I believe it may, it will drastically reshape the global order to the detriment of the United States. And Robert Pate, professor of political science at the University of Chicago, joins us now. He's also the director on the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. Professor Pate, it's great to have you on the show. Do the developments that we've seen over the last few days fit into your theory that what we're witnessing, the emergence of Iran as a not a global superpower, but certainly a regional superpower that has global impact because of its impact on the global economy?
Well, just to be clear, in the op-ed I explained the only way to stop Iran from becoming the fourth center of world power underneath the U.S., China, and Russia is war, is escalation. So what you are seeing is exactly that. I didn't say the U.S. couldn't blast Iran to bits or use military force to stop it. What I'm saying is we're at a fork in the road. If we pull back and we basically allow Iran to keep the Strait of Hormuz, and that is what it is strongly demanding, and also its enriched uranium, which it is strongly demanding, then Iran will, over the next year or so, be able to amass the economic strength and then the nuclear strength to become the fourth center of world power, and that would be the natural trajectory. What you're seeing is that the world is recognizing it doesn't like that alternative, and it is using military force, war, to stop that alternative. So many people are saying, why can't we have the ceasefire? Why aren't we? Well, a big reason is this. If you have a choice. Either Iran becomes the fourth center of world power, and we acquiesce to that, or we use war to stop it. And J.D. Vance has chosen war, Trump is choosing war, and there's no third choice. There's no, well, okay, let's have another alternative. We could wish there was a third choice, but you see that the effort to have wishful thinking, it keeps breaking down. And literally today, we're having military force being used to challenge Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically proving my point. So this has been validated over and over since I published the piece.
Can I just go back for 1 second and ask you, was this preventable before February 28th when we launched this war? Was there a scenario? I mean, Iran did not have control over the Strait of Hormuz, so at that point, it was not a global power. It was not climbing up the charts of a global power. Was this a strategic mistake by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, who started this war together, that we now find ourselves in this predicament that you just outlined?
Absolutely. This was a colossal strategic mistake, a predictable strategic mistake. I've taught for the U.S. Air Force. I've studied these problems for 30 years, published big books on the problems. This is my area, and it was fully predictable what would happen. I modeled the bombing of Iran for 20 years at the University of Chicago. This is exactly what you would expect as the default outcome, and this war will probably go down as a bigger colossal mistake than either Vietnam or the 2003 war, not so much because of military casualties, but because of the issue that we're pushing the world's economy over a precipice week by week by week. We're getting closer to that. And the choice is, if we don't use military force, Iran becomes the fourth center of world power, not today, not tomorrow, but a year from now or 18 months from now, which is very close in world historic terms.
Professor Pate, what you just said is a pretty horrifying problem set. There is no good option, according to what you're outlining. What is the least bad option that hopefully could salvage the world economy and stop some of the chaos, or is this already unleashed and so the United States is going to have to follow it to its logical conclusion with war?
We're pretty far down the road, and I I've been explaining for weeks, some on MSNBC, not with you, but exactly what the options are. And the truth is, when we had the ceasefire, people asked me, what should we do? And I said, military containment of Israel and Lebanon. Well, what you saw is the Trump administration literally did that for about a couple days. And then what happened is they refused to follow it up. So we had the military containment of Israel and Lebanon. Trump brought those folks to Washington to have that truce. Even Hezbollah was agreeing to abide by it. And then Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz. And what did Trump do? He shut it right back down an hour later. And then Iran said, well, you're shutting it down. We're shutting it down. And since then, it's been tit for tat up the escalation ladder on both sides. So there were things to do, but every time we come up with an idea, you see, it kind of breaks down. And the reason it's breaking down is not because we can't be clever and smart. We all have these triple-digit IQs now. The problem is not that. The problem is literally the zero-sum nature of power in this situation. Iran is feeling its oats as the emerging fourth center of world power. It sees it's reducing the GDP of Saudi Arabia, UAE by 20 and 30%. Just imagine that. It is deterring Japan from getting involved in this situation militarily. Same with Europeans. I was just in Sydney in Australia. Oh my goodness, the last thing Australia wants to do is stick their nose in this because of Iran's power. So what you're seeing is the more this goes on, the more Iran is feeling its oats, and then the choices that America has more and more are increasingly military in nature, and they're not actually that effective.
Professor Pate, I wanted to ask you briefly about what China's role has been, or what China's role will be coming out of this, in part because China was expected to be hurt the most in many ways from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, from this war, because China gets so much of its oil from Iran. And instead, if you look to analysts like those at Goldman Sachs, they say that China will actually be less scathed economically than the United States will.
Yeah, this was always true. I was in China for 2 weeks when we bombed Bordeaux. I just had a gigantic event with Kurt Campbell, the Asia czar for the Democrats. What this conventional wisdom that's been reported in the media has been horrendous. Nobody worth their salt actually thought China was going to be hurt. Now you're getting the expert. But I spent those 2 weeks with BYD, with Xiaomi, with Alibaba, with the leading industries, and what the business leaders told me was, yeah, they might lose 1% or 2% of GDP, but the bottom line is America will be so hurt by getting into another quagmire, their days of rising will go faster. And so, yes, there's a little bit of problem for China, but this has been way oversold here to the American public. And that's why China is actually, what China's doing is they're playing a role of moderately helping Iran control the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think they want a nuclear escalation, so don't get me wrong. I think there are limits to this. But at the end of the day, here, what's really happening is I think that there's just been a gross misreading of this, and I just don't think that really the good people have been engaged here. And I don't just mean me. I mean, where's been Kurt Campbell? When was the last time Kurt Campbell has been on? Just get him on. I think you'll see the Asia czar for the Biden and Obama administration has had a pretty clear-eyed view of this, and I just don't think that, and now you're seeing JP Morgan, where are they getting that from? They're getting it from the people who know.
Professor Robert Pate, I've long been a fan of your scholarship, and I'm so happy that you finally got to come on the show, although I wish it were, happier circumstances, so thank you.
Oh, for sure. But it's never happy with me, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
Up next, every war has its medium.